Have you ever wondered if the walls in your own home could whisper secrets that shatter your world? What if a forgotten corner of your house held the key to uncovering a betrayal so deep, it changes everything you thought you knew about love and loyalty? Buckle up, because this tale of hidden truths and quiet revenge will grip you with every twist, pulling you deeper into the shadows of a marriage unraveling, one overheard word at a time. You'll be on the edge of your seat, questioning every relationship in your life, right up to the shocking finale that flips the script on who really holds the power. In our laundry room, there's this slim metal air vent, the kind that builders slap in as a lazy afterthought. For the entire 9 years we've called this place home, I've never once caught a single sound slipping through it, not the faintest whisper, not even a hint of a breeze, absolutely nothing at all until that fateful Tuesday. I wasn't prying or sneaking around like some suspicious sleuth on a mission. No, I was just planted on the floor, battling this ridiculous dryer sheet that had fused itself right onto the drum's interior. I was grumbling under my breath, complaining to myself about how absolutely nothing in this house ever functions properly, not the machines, not even me on most days. And then, out of nowhere, it came, a voice floating down from that vent right above me. It was her voice, my wife Mira's, crystal clear and raw, as if she were standing inches away. She uttered it so nonchalantly, like she was deciding on a menu item. No, I'd never pick him again, not in a million lifetimes. My entire body locked up, turning ice cold. I didn't let go of that dryer sheet. It stayed gripped in my fingers as I turned to stone, frozen in shock. Her friend Eloise, I could tell by that distinctive nasal chuckle that echoed next, probed further. Why not? He adores you completely. Mira let out this heavy sigh, one I'd never encountered from her before, laced with exhaustion and regret. That's exactly the issue. His love for me is overwhelming, far more than I could ever return. It smothers me. If I could rewind time, I'd go for someone tougher, someone who stands firm when things get rough. Someone who isn't so easily shattered. She spat out, breakable, like it was a curse, something repulsive. My throat clenched tight, as if her words had snaked through the vent and wrapped around it. This wasn't meant for my ears. I wasn't supposed to discover how she viewed me, as fragile, as something to discard, as safe to ignore because I'd never have the guts to walk away. A weak, pitiful sound escaped me, like a wounded animal's whine, and I clamped my hand over my mouth in panic. I couldn't let her know I'd overheard. I didn't want to shatter her carefree chat about envisioning a future where I clearly didn't fit, one I apparently lacked the strength to claim. She continued on, each word slicing deeper than the one before. She confessed how she stuck around simply because rebuilding from scratch seemed too daunting. How she craved that spark of thrill she'd lost. How she yearned for a partner larger than life itself, not someone soft and worried like Ellery. Gentle and anxious, perfect, that's my label. Like a loyal golden retriever handling the bills. I remained there on that chilly tile floor for what felt like an eternity, absorbing how the world I believed in was disintegrating through that flimsy aluminum grate. When Mira finally ended the call and headed downstairs, I bolted from the laundry room in a frantic scramble, nearly tripping over myself. I couldn't face her. I didn't trust that I wouldn't plead or shatter or demand why she'd stop choosing me. The remainder of the day, I acted as if all was right, assisted with chopping veggies, listened attentively to her work stories, brushed a kiss on her shoulder as she passed by. But deep down, a shift had occurred. And the cruelest twist? She remained blissfully unaware that her quiet, fragile husband, the one she no longer desired, had already begun his silent drift apart. That very night, after overhearing her declare she'd never select me again, I prepared her absolute favorite meal. Not driven by affection, not as a frantic bid to reclaim her heart. I did it to observe her deceive me straight to my face, while I dished out precisely what she once craved in our happier times. Back in those days when she'd perch on the kitchen counter, sneaking tastes from the skillet just to flirt. Back when I truly counted. I whipped up garlic lemon chicken alongside thyme-roasted potatoes and tender asparagus. I even set candles aglow, decanted her preferred Cabernet, arranged the table as if celebrating a milestone. Mira arrived home from work, heels dangling from one hand, bag in the other, and she paused, caught off guard. I caught that brief spark of astonishment, followed by bewilderment, then the polished fake grin she'd honed over the years. "What's this all for?" she inquired, placing her items aside. "Just wanted to do something thoughtful," I replied casually, shrugging it off, masking the agony that had gripped me since her words branded me as suffocating. She took her seat opposite me, all courteous and charming, praising the dish, inquiring about my day, and throughout, my mind replayed her vent confessions. I couldn't shake the image of her swirling her wine while labeling me breakable to Eloise. I envisioned this other side of her, the one quietly mapping out her escape, if not in body, then in spirit. Midway through the meal, she gazed at me with that tender look she once reserved for genuine moments, tilting her head slightly. "Are you all right?" she wondered. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Sure, just worn out from a tough week." Then she delivered a line that froze my blood. "You always put in so much effort to make things flawless." No venom in her tone, but zero affection either. Just a neutral remark, like appraising a familiar artwork that no longer stirred any emotion. It struck me fiercer than a physical blow because yes, I do overextend myself, and she'd ceased appreciating it ages ago. Later, once she dozed off on the sofa during a documentary she'd chosen but barely watched, I lingered alone at the table amid 2 drained wine glasses, her unfinished chicken, the candle sputtering as if gasping for air. In that moment, clarity hit. I wasn't sticking around. Not from revenge, not even heartbreak, but because I'd exhausted myself chasing crumbs in the home we'd constructed together. A place where I now felt utterly alien in my own body. Yet I wouldn't depart in fury. Oh no, I envisioned something subtler, something conclusive, and she'd remain oblivious until I'd vanished completely. Come morning, she pecked my cheek without glancing up from her screen. I lingered in the hallway, clutching her coffee, 2 sugars, oat milk, prepared just as she preferred, and she murmured, "Thanks, babe," with the warmth of greeting a stranger at the door. She snatched her keys, twirled away, and exited, totally clueless that I was unraveling bit by bit. The instant the door latched, I headed for the hallway closet. Tucked behind forgotten winter jackets, squeezed amid a tangle of dead Christmas lights and relics from her fleeting yoga obsession, lay a worn notebook untouched for 3 years. It began as a simple expense tracker but evolved into something heavier, more melancholic, almost compulsive. With shaky hands, I leafed through its pages. Entries scrawled in jagged, doubtful script. She bailed on our anniversary plans, claiming work interference. Insisted I reschedule my folks' trip because she craved solitude. Mocked my job advancement, dismissing the title as phony. Sheet after sheet of seemingly minor incidents that, pieced together, painted a starkly different picture. One entry leaped out. 5 years back I'd penned, "If she ever voices regret over marrying me, I'll go." No arguments, no pleas, just depart. I reread that vow a dozen times, fingers grazing the ink as if it held holy weight. That was prevent revelation, before her admission of never choosing me anew, before I grasped that her remorse had seeped through her tone for ages. I just tuned it out. I shut the notebook, inhaled deeply. Then I fired up my laptop and set quiet plans in gear, virtual steps forward. Verified the lease, solely my name attached. Confirmed my hidden savings stash, modest but intact. Then came the most dreamlike act, submitting applications for positions in towns she'd detest relocating to. That afternoon I claimed a late work shift. She accepted it without a second thought. I lingered outside, parked 2 blocks distant, observing our porch lights illuminate at dusk. At precisely 8:47 p.m., an unfamiliar vehicle eased into our driveway. I narrowed my eyes, heart pounding. A sleek black Audi with darkly tinted windows rolled up smoothly. Mira stepped outside, dressed in a cozy hoodie and fitted leggings, acting as if she wasn't putting any effort into her appearance, yet fully aware of how effortlessly stunning she came across, and she slid right into the passenger side without a second thought. No pausing to scan the surroundings, no hint of caution, just in and vanished in an instant. She didn't return to the house until well past midnight, leaving the night stretching on without her. I had already retreated to bed by then, lights dimmed low, feigning deep sleep like a lifeless statue. She eased herself under the blankets as though the evening had been utterly ordinary, no ripples at all. But rage didn't surge through me and shock didn't hit either because deep inside, I'd already mapped out my path forward. This scene unfolding was merely the solid proof I needed. She'd clearly selected her direction, and now the time had arrived for me to claim mine. The initial item I relocated was my passport. I pulled it quietly from the shared drawer where we stashed all our vital documents, birth records, the house loan files, even her dusty college diploma she always promised to display someday, and tucked it snugly into the side compartment of my gym duffel. If she spotted the shift, she kept it to herself, never breathing a word about it. Next up, I shifted that cherished framed photo from our getaway to Big Sur. It had proudly occupied a spot on my desk for ages, but I swapped it out with a haphazard pile of neglected envelopes. She strolled by it no fewer than 3 times, even pausing once to ignite a nearby candle, yet the absence never registered on her radar. That realization sealed it for me. This approach would succeed without a hitch. I wasn't merely departing. I was methodically fading myself from the picture entirely. I began with the tiniest details, tackling one cluttered sock drawer after another, vanishing a lone shaving cream tube here and there. I allowed the bathroom to descend into cheerful chaos, her belongings spilling over every surface, so my gradual vanishings blended right into the mess without drawing her eye. I meticulously copied all my files from the laptop onto a secure, hidden cloud drive, then erased the local storage completely, spinning a tale to her about a sudden system crash. She just sighed with exasperation and quipped that I ought to ditch the bargain bin gadgets. Day by day, I spirited away a bit more of my presence from our shared space, while her arrivals home grew progressively tardier. She developed this new habit of softly humming tunes in the kitchen as her fingers danced across her phone screen. Humming had never been part of her repertoire, not even in our brightest moments of joy, but now it emerged like an involuntary signal, her body spilling secrets before her words ever could. One evening, she carelessly left her phone screen up on the bedside table as she headed for a shower. I fought the urge to peek. Truly, I resisted with everything in me. But then the display glowed to life, and raw curiosity trumped any sense of pride. The sender was a stranger's name, Dean, punctuated with a wine glass emoji. The text read simply, "Still replaying what you shared. If you're truly committed, I'll hold out." A chill raced through my veins, not fueled by envy, but by the stark validation it offered for the puzzle I'd been assembling. This went far beyond a fleeting midlife dalliance or a quest for fleeting admiration. She was constructing foundations not merely for betrayal, but for a full-on substitution of me in her world. The impulse to challenge her burned strong. Lord, how I yearned to raise my voice, let the tears flow and demand answers. Why drag this out? Why fill our kitchen with your absent-minded melodies as if I'm invisible? Why confess you'd never select me anew while still slipping on the ring I gave you? Yet I held back, too consumed with ensuring she'd never have an opportunity to feign remorse down the line. The following day, during her hours at the office, I reached out to my supervisor and redeemed every accumulated vacation day from the past 6 years. I fired off an email to Human Resources, declaring I'd shift to remote work for the upcoming month. No pushback came. I'd always been the dependable type. Come Friday, my finances were fully accessible and fluid. I discreetly removed my details from a couple of our joint accounts. I'd secured a storage locker on the far side of town and inked a rental agreement for an apartment in a distant city, spanning 4 states away. Remarkably, she remained utterly oblivious to it all. And perhaps that stung the deepest, pouring years into cherishing someone with such unwavering care, devotion, and wholeness, only to watch as you dismantle your existence fragment by fragment, and they don't so much as flinch. The evening when the balance truly tipped arrived on an unremarkable Wednesday. Plain, routine, the sort of night destined to fade into obscurity. But that's precisely what made it ripe for transformation. Mira arrived later than her new norm, carrying a subtle aura of red wine mingled with a masculine scent that bore no resemblance to mine. I lounged on the sofa, ostensibly absorbed in a documentary, but in truth, I dissected her every gesture like a researcher observing the climax of a long-running trial. She flung her bag onto the armchair, nudged off her shoes with a casual flick, and approached me wearing that vague, half-formed grin. Apologies for the delay once more. Those meetings dragged on forever. Meetings, sure, the very ones that suspiciously synced with incoming messages from a guy who capped his notes with a wine emoji. I offered a nod, feigning indifference. I'd mastered the art of pretense by then. But what escaped her notice was this. That very morning, prior to her departure for the day, I'd lifted the spare set of house keys from their usual perch. A minor tweak in the fabric of her flawlessly orchestrated routine, and it registered. "Hey, did you relocate the keys?" she tossed out lightly while rummaging in the refrigerator. I gave a nonchalant shrug. Probably just misplaced them somewhere. My words emerged steady, without a quiver, which caught even me off guard. I typically crumble like soggy cardboard under deception. She fixed her gaze on that barren hook for an extended beat, far longer than warranted, as if the emptiness stirred a nameless disquiet within her. Perfect. She deserved that unease, for this absent key marked the initial tangible clue that her supposedly fragile spouse wasn't quite the reliable fixture she'd assumed. Following our meal of reheated remnants, which she scarcely nibbled at, she ascended the stairs for her evening rinse. I remained below, meticulously fine-tuning the final elements of my getaway blueprint. My packed duffel rested securely in the car's trunk. Essential papers, funds, and extra attire were stowed in the locker. All that lingered in the home bearing my imprint were the overlooked odds and ends she'd never valued regardless. Then the pivotal instant unfolded. She emerged from the steam, towel coiled around her damp hair, and summoned my name, not in a relaxed drawl, not with lazy indifference, but with a sharp edge of urgency. "Ellery?" I stayed silent, simply attuned to the sounds. Her bare feet padded across the bedroom floor, then echoed down the corridor, descending the steps. She scanned the rooms, half expecting me to materialize from the dimness. "Are you around?" Her tone softened, laced with a trace of doubt. Perhaps, for the first genuine occasion in ages, she pondered my whereabouts. I allowed her unease to simmer for a solid 60 seconds before emerging from the kitchen's threshold. "Right here," I murmured softly. She released a breath, palm pressed to her heart. "Geez, you gave me a fright. I thought you'd slipped away without a word." And right there, in that precise exchange, something irreversible locked into place within me. She sensed it, the void, the hush, the looming chance of my evaporation. The tremor in her words didn't echo like dread over my loss. It resonated as apprehension over slipping grip. I offered her a faint, weary, impeccably courteous smile. "I wouldn't vanish like that," I assured her. But nestled in my pocket, my phone buzzed intermittently with truths. Affirmations from the movers, the fresh property manager, the financial institution. All pieces aligned. The timer ticked onward. She believed solitude terrified me. Little did she grasp how profoundly more daunting it would prove for her once I ceased being the foreseeable figure she'd taken for granted. Soon enough, she'd discover exactly how noiselessly a man deemed fragile could shatter his chains and soar. It unfolded on a crisp early Saturday dawn when I at last stepped through that door for good. And I executed it in the precise manner I'd been evaporating over the preceding weeks. Hushed, deliberate, utterly unseen. Upstairs, she slumbered on, her device faintly glowing by her side, one limb ensnared in the bedding as per her habit. I lingered there, gazing at her for what felt like an endless beat, not fueled by rage, not even by a wave of sorrow, but by this profound quietude, the sort that settles in just moments before a fierce tempest unleashes its fury. No bulging suitcases lingered by the entryway, no furious slamming of cabinets, no explosive farewell declarations, just a single poignant detail. That wedding band she'd quietly abandoned wearing several months back. Mine, though, I'd carried tucked in my pocket for weeks on end. I'd been holding out for the perfect instant, and now it rested solitary on the kitchen countertop, accompanied by a simple sticky note bearing absolutely nothing at all. No parting words, not even a curt goodbye, just that stark, empty yellow void. That was the entirety of what I left for her. My first stop was the storage facility, where everything awaited in precise order. The stacked cartons, the securely fastened pouches, the neatly tagged containers, all scripted in my own familiar scrawl. It struck me as if another person entirely had assembled them, as though I'd already slipped away from this world, abandoning only a catalog of my belongings. From there, I headed to the modest apartment I'd secured under an alternate surname. A compact space with worn, inexpensive flooring and those imperfect kitchen tiles showing faint cracks, yet it belonged solely to me. No more joint toothbrushes cluttering the sink, no framed snapshots adorning the walls capturing an existence woven from partial deceptions. No longer forcing myself into the role of someone deemed worthy of selection. As dusk settled in, I powered down my phone, not anticipating any outreach from her. Truth be told, I doubted she'd register my absence immediately, but the real motive was carving out unreachable space. I craved freedom from her presence lingering in my device. I yearned to inhale deeply without the weight of her influence pressing down. As it happened, the wait proved brief. At precisely 10:14 that evening, I flicked the phone back to life for a fleeting check. 6 unanswered calls stared back, alongside 3 voice messages, every one originating from Mira. The initial recording was concise and tentative. "Hey, where exactly are you?" The follow-up carried a sharper edge, her tone more strained and abrupt. "You didn't mention heading out anywhere. At the very least, you could have given me a heads up." But the third, it resonated differently, raw and unsettled. "Ellery, come on, what on earth is happening? You're ignoring me completely. Your things have vanished. You didn't even..." She abruptly halted mid-sentence. I could make out her labored breaths, followed by a heavy hush. I skipped ahead, not bothering with whatever came next. She hadn't addressed me by my full name in ages. Not in that manner, not laced with such a raw hint of fragility. It ought to have stirred some emotion within me, perhaps. Yet it landed like a faded echo from the past, akin to stumbling upon a tune you'd once cherished but now evoked nothing. Right at midnight, a message pinged through. Merely 2 stark words: "You left." Devoid of any punctuation, no interrogative curve, no finger-pointing. Just a flat, understated declaration. She'd never imagined me capable of transforming such resolve into action. Even now, she remained clueless about my destination. She had zero inkling of the meticulous planning that had unfolded over time. And crucially, she was blind to the core reality: she hadn't truly forfeited me in that final departure. She'd surrendered me long before, on that afternoon when her words seeped through the vent. Now, she was only starting to grasp the burden I'd shouldered for so many years. The void of presence, the oppressive quiet, and a residence brimming with echoes that had lost their vitality. 3 full days following my quiet exit, an unfamiliar number lit up my screen with a buzz. I nearly allowed it to fade into voicemail, but an inexplicable pull urged me to pick up. Perhaps it stemmed from sheer intrigue. Or maybe I simply craved a voice that didn't carry her familiar timbre. "Ellery?" the woman on the line uttered, laced with bewilderment. "Hold on. Oh shoot, I didn't intend to dial you." I held my tongue, recognizing the speaker instantly. It was Eloise, Mira's confidant, the very one who'd been on the receiving end of that vented conversation, the one whose nasal chuckle had punctuated Mira's declaration of never choosing me anew. I teetered on the edge of disconnecting when she interjected, "Wait, hold up, please. I have to get this out. You don't need to respond. Simply hear me." I remained wordless. She drew in a steadying breath and pressed on. "She's falling apart completely. I don't know if that matters to you at this point, but she genuinely believed you'd never walk away. None of us anticipated it. She always described you as too gentle, too entangled in her world, but now she's coming undone at the seams. She paces by the entrance constantly, as if expecting you to stroll back in any second." Emptiness washed over me, no surge of compassion, no spark of satisfaction, merely a deep-seated weariness. "She's spreading the word that you deserted her," Eloise continued, her volume dropping softer. "But I set her straight, she's far from blameless. I mean, she deceived Dean outright. Told him you two were already apart, that she lingered only to tie up loose ends." The mention of Dean didn't jolt me. At last, a concrete label for the shadow of infidelity. But what truly snagged my attention followed. "She never clued you in, right? That she and Dean had been scheming to shack up together." I rose gradually, wandering the barren confines of my new haven. She assured him she'd phase you out gently, Eloise elaborated. Lord Ellery, I suspect she aimed to orchestrate it all so she'd emerge spotless, positioning herself as the wounded party. That revelation pierced deep, not the liaison per se, I'd already mourned that chapter. But the notion that she'd premeditated framing me as the destroyer of her world, all while stealthily aligning her future like a calculated corporate deal. Eloise hesitated briefly. I probably overstepped by reaching out. My apologies. I figured you ought to grasp the full narrative. The line went dead. I refrained from redialing. No messages followed from me. Yet my fingers trembled, not from shattered illusions but from a fiercer sensation, unclouded insight. She was actively reshaping the tale, casting me as the antagonist, portraying herself as the devoted spouse who'd invested endlessly and reaped scant rewards. The forsaken soul. But reality painted a different canvas. She wasn't abandoned. She was merely relinquished by a man she'd presumed too feeble to ever depart. And now I realized the next occasion she sought out pity, reinforcement, or another meticulously spun fabrication, I'd stand ready, not to debate, not to clash, but to unveil the authentic sequence of events. For I hadn't simply faded into obscurity. I'd liberated myself. A solid 2 weeks elapsed before our paths crossed once more. Not via a digital ping, not through a lingering voice recording, not even across online feeds. I'd meticulously erased my digital footprint from those realms. No, Mira materialized in the classic sense. Unexpected, driven by raw desperation. It was an early Sunday in my fresh abode, as I methodically sorted through laundry with a fresh brew of coffee percolating nearby. A rap echoed at the door, decisive, rapid, all too recognizable. My instincts flared as I peered through the spy hole. There she stood, locks disheveled, eyes swollen and crimson, coat haphazardly fastened as if she'd bolted from home to outpace her own doubts. For a heartbeat, the past nearly resurfaced. Almost. She remained unaware of my scrutiny for mere inches away. She lingered, chest heaving as though she'd sprinted the flights. Something clenched in her fist, perhaps a photograph. Our matrimonial snapshot, I surmised. Her grip turned her knuckles pale. Then came the hushed plea, "Ellery, please just let me speak with you." She paused, expectant. I held statue still. Another pound resounded, amplified this round. "I was mistaken," she confessed. I never intended those words. I acted foolishly, terrified, convinced you'd never go, but your absence shattered it all. I need you back. Please. Yet I offered no response. She pressed her brow to the wood as if surrendering her weight to it. Dean's out of the picture. He chased the illusion, not the reality. He bolted the instant my facade cracked. The twist of fate nearly drew a grin from me. She persisted. You were constant. You poured in everything. I recognize that fully now. I had no idea how to even start repairing what I'd shattered, but I'd pledged to do absolutely anything required. Just swing open that door. Yet I held firm, not driven by bitterness, not seeking payback, but rooted in this deep, unwavering calm. For the very first time in what felt like an eternity, I escaped that nagging sense of being lesser. I cast off the image of the delicate soul she'd pegged as dependable, ordinary, easily overlooked. A rush of true freedom surged within me. And that heavy silence wrapping around her, it echoed the choking quietude I'd waited through for far too long. Allow her to soak in it just a bit longer. Eventually, her cries softened to nothing, her footfalls drifted away, and peace enveloped the building once more. I poured out my steaming coffee, eased myself into a chair on the balcony, and took in the sunrise's warm hues splashing across a bustling city that held no trace of her influence. No urge bubbled up to follow after her, no pull to entertain her questions or endure another round of rationalizations. I'd already tackled the most crucial question head-on. Would I ever pick her again? No way in the world. But finally, I'd made the choice to prioritize myself. And that stood as the very first genuine step I'd taken in what seemed like forever. If this tale of betrayal, quiet strength, and ultimate liberation gripped you from start to finish, don't forget to hit that like button to show your support. It really helps these stories reach more hearts. And if you're craving more chilling accounts of infidelity, heartbreak, and redemption, make sure to subscribe to Dark Infidelity Stories right now for fresh episodes that dive deep into the shadows of relationships. Oh, and sharing this with a friend who needs a wake-up call could spark some real conversations. Go ahead and spread the word. Thanks for joining me on this emotional ride. Stay tuned for the next dark twist.